Hi everyone, welcome to Sunday Nights with Faye Seidler. It's me, Faye. It's Sunday night. We're doing this. I have been doing so much work on my show, The Pulse, which I'll be talking about later in this episode, and it's about me being kind of a person, and I'm going to translate that to this environment so I'm less stilted. That's how we learn in the entertainment slash news business. There's no difference anymore, but now we admit it. What we have for you tonight is some events. So to go through my opening news, the first event to mention is the Agriculture QPR Suicide Prevention Training happening February 4th at 1 p.m. This is a rural specific QPR training, so it is helping individuals in farming, ranching, rural communities who have specific risk factors that we don't always catch in more traditional suicide prevention trainings. It's put together by NDSU Extension, and it's fantastic. I love promoting it. They do it quite a lot, usually in Minot in the surrounding area, so check it out. Recommend it to your friends if they're in that place. On February 7th at 12 p.m., we have First Fridays, which is put on by the League of Women Voters. They're doing Project Optimism. I haven't looked into it, but you know what? I like it because it's about optimism, and that's my shtick most of the time. So that's a great place to get involved if you want to be democratically involved, like involved with our democratic process. They are so good about empowering people and giving opportunities, so check them out. And then finally, I have Winter Pride happening from February 11th to 16th. And when I say I have it, what I mean is FM Pride is nailing it. They have a 5-day event, a gauntlet of gayness to bring to you between February 11th to the 16th. And that's just fantastic. And seriously, organizing events like that takes a ton of work. To have 5 days in our winter, to have community enjoy and celebrate, especially in times like this, is incredible. Please share it. Please thank them. Find FM Pride on Facebook and send them a message of thanks. Just do that for me, please. In politics and policy news, the North Dakota Supreme Court has upheld that abortion continues to be the law of the land. They recently ruled it was constitutionally protected, and as North Dakota attempts to challenge its own Supreme Court on this issue, it asked for them to make it not protected while the ruling was determined, and the Supreme Court said, you don't tell us what to do. Are you kidding me? So they're still deciding how that goes out. There's still going to be appeals, but for now, abortion is legal, and this is very good for healthcare in general, as there's a lot of pregnancies which are simply not viable and only put the mother at risk. When there's these really strict abortion bans like North Dakota had, it would make doctors second guess what they could do because they didn't want to go to jail for providing healthcare. So for now, it's going to be helping at least our healthcare sector out, and where this goes, we'll keep on following. Something I want to show you is the advocacy toolkit put together by Foundation for Healthy North Dakota. I really like this organization because it gives nonprofits tools to actually advocate, because you should and can. We often think about politics as a partisan situation, but politics is getting involved with your government, which is your entire society. Everyone should be political, but you don't have to be partisan. I'm very nonpartisan in my work. I work with everyone. I work on issues. I work on causes, and I want to empower everyone. And that's what Foundation for Healthy North Dakota does too. They have a great advocacy toolkit. I recommend checking it out, especially for professionals and people involved in nonprofits, because you need that information. You need to go out there and do things, please. In a segment I used to call equity news, but I am now calling illegal news, we have a good news about Leonard Petir, I'm not sure if I'm saying that last name correctly, being given a pardon. This is something that a lot of Indigenous activists, as well as other human rights activists, have been working on for decades. He was arrested for allegedly killing 2 FBI officers in 1975. I believe he's contested being arrested and is now in his 80s. A lot of the clemency advocacy at the last decade has really just been about, can he spend his final years with his family? So many advocates are praising this as a move towards justice that we have finally seen after 50 years of imprisonment. In other equity news, we have several individuals who were honored for the MLK Day celebration within the Fargo-Moorhead area. This was an event put on by Fried Dissonance in partnership with the City of Fargo. The individuals who had won these awards were Morris Sanders, a social media manager, photographer, and organizer with Indigenous Association. We had Davies High School student Florin Sherman, the president of the North Dakota Association for Student Councils. We had Lex Francis, a multidisciplinary artist and activist dedicated to advocating for marginalized communities in Fargo, and received recognition in the adult category. The 2 previous names were in the youth category. And the CHS Friendship was recipient of the Organization Award, specifically for the work of disability. I always like when we spend time to honor people who are doing things, especially youth, to show them that they matter. You matter at any point in your life. Any point that you're putting in work, you matter. And the values that we instill in the next generation are the ones that we instilled today. And that we should appreciate each other, that we should celebrate each other. And when we work to make this world better, that deserves praise. So I've loved this event every time it's been hosted and the people who get celebrated for it. In health, social work, and education news, I want to share with you a letter submitted by Kara Glow. She works within the Y and Right program and works with individuals living with HIV and AIDS. Her letter is talking about decriminalizing HIV, which we have a bill going through the House right now, House Bill 1217, which seeks to do this. Kara's been an incredible advocate. I recommend reading that letter and even advocating for the House Bill 1217 when it comes up. In data and resources, we have Trevor Project data on state policy impacts on trans mental health. And it's not anything you want to expect. Turns out when there's a lot of hostility and prejudice targeting a minority group, the minority stress will increase. Any sort of research we do into community health, public health, the social determinants of health, all of it points to the same direction, and that's let's be less awful to our LG plus populations. And let's recognize that this is a natural part of humanity, that if you are part of this community, you grow up that way. This is who we are, and you can't really change that. And there's no surprise that the minority stress is going to be increasing the negative outcomes. In community news, I want to give a shout out to Magic City Equality as well as Turtle Mountain for having posts about hope, action, and resiliency during times like this. Those posts I think are incredible to show our community members, especially the ones that are LGBTQ plus or youth, that there are organizations out there that are doing work that care about them. This kind of effort helps to improve those resiliency factors for these kids and helps to combat a lot of the risk factors we see from a lot of high-level prejudice or stigma towards this community. So I just want to give them a shout out and thanks. I also wrote an article, yay Faye, believing in North Dakotans. I wrote this as I genuinely do believe in North Dakota. I get frustrated and critical about things that happen like anyone would. I'm human. I'm not saying that I am just blindly believing in everything going forward, but I want you to know that I fundamentally believe. I fundamentally believe people are better than they are worse. I fundamentally believe that people do care about their kids and their communities. I fundamentally believe that we do want to help each other out. I just think there is a lot of misinformation, anxiety, trauma, and generational trauma that a lot of us are dealing with. And I think that the more that we put good into this system, the more that we are kind to ourselves and each other, the better we're going to see the world. And we are so guarded right now and in so much pain that we can only lash out, but there is a better future, and that's what I believe. It's essential for the work that I do to believe that. So I wrote about it. That's what I got for that. That's our opening news. I'm going to be moving into story one. Will be missing numbers in public health. That'll be focusing on how if we don't look at marginalized populations in public health data, we're not able to actually address public health in any meaningful way. Because a lot of the numbers that we look at, they could be influenced by 50% or more by minority stress. So when we try to find ways to problem solve based on the data that we see, we're not heading in the right direction if we're looking at just the surface of the water. So I'm going to talk about that with some examples, not to disparage the work being done. It's still incredible and needed, but it's unfortunate so much of this tends to never include disparity data. And then I'll talk about the Pulse, which is all my work about the legislative session where we have a ton of fun. I sometimes make jokes. I made jokes on Saturday about Belrogs emerging from our ground as we continue to frack and how we needed a wizard army to fight them, and that was a bill. It was a funny joke I did. But that's going into my main show, so I hope you enjoy that if you stick around. Bye! So I'm going to be talking about some missing data within the behavioral health report that was released by North Dakota Health and Human Services. They actually released quite a lot of different reports across the whole health and human service industry that we have, the government, and they're all really good. And before I really get into how critical I'm going to be about them, I want to center that. It's not, this is garbage and throw it away. I'm not trying to make that point. This is essential data. It's important to look at it. But I do need to make the point that if we continue to only look at generalized population data, we're never going to be able to make any sustainable change because there's going to be a large portion of the data we are never addressing. And a lot of times I do see the big problems of like mental health be translated into we need more therapists. Those are important, but if we're not looking at the impacts of racism or sexism or homophobia or transphobia, if we're not looking at a lot of these things that I think are illegal today to look at, we're never going to solve these problems. In fact, we might have solved them and not know. We continue to chase a rabbit that doesn't exist. So I want that to be clear. It is valuable work. It is essential work. It is important work. And I love the reports as they are. This is just to kind of highlight why it's important to think about better inclusion in other reports. It doesn't even have to be every report they do has something like this, but they do need to have some reports that do this work. Otherwise, it's just depending on me. And who am I? I'm like a raccoon that learned to read and broke into an apartment and learned how to use Canva and also Zoom. Other than that, that's what I am, just like a raccoon. So we can't keep on depending on Raccoon Faye for data. We really can't. We do need better people to do this, and I'm begging that they do. So that's how I'm going to start this. Raccoon Faye. But you have the report, here's a page of it, and you have the contents, and I do a control find so you can see that LGBT is not anywhere within this report. It is 113 pages. They don't mention it at all. They don't mention sexual orientation or gender identity or transgender. It's not in the report. I think race is mentioned once in terms of demographic information, but I want to clearly show how easy it is to see what isn't here. Nothing is here. There's no benefit to the work I do within specific marginalized populations to find it. Go back to the beginning about how great these reports are. Still believe that. That's still true. But let's keep on going deeper into the report. So we have a lot of different kind of priorities and milestones that are showing up here. You can read through the report. You can see where they are. But none of them could possibly include that we need better education and outreach for trans kids who have the highest discrepancies of data by just looking at this. I don't even think they necessarily break it up by sex, and we do see that both trans and cisgender women are experiencing much greater proportions of depression or anxiety than cisgender or trans men might be. The ways that we break down demographics matter and create a better lens for us to see and understand this data. That's kind of where I am with being a data expert and talking about this and making data cool, because that's what's important. So I developed a handy graph for how this problem can happen. So I'll have it up here and then you can see across the screen. So let's take the top right. That's going to be our red survey data on general populations to show great need. And then that moves over to develop solutions to hit general populations. We're moving counterclockwise, which I realize is a mistake now, but I've already made this graphic. So I hope that you will go on this reverse journey with me. So we develop solutions to hit general populations, and when we think about general populations, that tends to be the most privileged in the actual society, not just thinking about race or gender, but also income and rural versus urban, often hits where the most people are, and the people who tend to already have the biggest benefits. So then we can move down to find that we are missing the minority stressors that contribute to a large amount of these bad outcomes. When you were looking at my State of the State report, I identified that about 30% of all of the outcomes we're seeing were specifically from LG plus minority stress. And if you actually go with the hard data on LG plus outcomes compared to straight outcomes, they were making up almost 50% of the bad outcomes by themselves. As a population of only 20% of our actual total population, they were half the youth experiencing problems. So they are not really getting addressed by let's be nicer to each other when what they're hearing is a bunch of slurs targeting their community. This is also true a lot of our indigenous youth. We've heard story after story about sports games and racial taunting. So there's a lot of times where our traditional intersections of action just don't really help when you feel targeted by society itself. So the efforts we try to do have no impact or have very little impact. So then what happens is, oh, well, this isn't working. We're going to need to do more research. That research continues that trend of just researching the general population and believing if you look at the widest lens, you're going to help the most people. And that's a very logical idea, but it's not research backed. Research suggests that you should look at your most marginalized populations and build up from there. And that's the only way you're really going to fix the cracks in the foundation well enough to help everyone. What research also shows is that when you do that, it's better for everyone. It is better for every population because if your young Black trans girl is doing well in rural North Dakota, every other kid is probably doing pretty good. So I don't have the research in front of me, but I've been going to health conferences for years now and following the social determinants of health. So this has been a big component of my work and understanding. I am always data driven and pragmatic, so I'm not going through this because I would like them to help LG plus individuals. I would. It's also just more effective. So I just wanted to highlight some of this within the data. I don't know if anyone cares. I know people don't care about data like I care about data, but I do, and it's my show. So, or I'm gonna be honest, I recorded 5 minutes of blabbering about how much I love data and stuff. I just cut it out. I hope you like that segment. That's it. Good. Okay, next segment. Hey, I've done this before, but I just want to give you a heads up that I do a lot of work on the North Dakota legislative session on my website, and I have a show that's on YouTube every night. It's usually about 5 minutes long. So if you want to be involved with the session, know what's going on, know how to get involved, follow me, either my website, I have a newsletter for it, I have the show I put out, I'm active on social media, but I have so much stuff that I do. I have a newsletter that goes out kind of on Saturdays right now, but it's kind of responsive to the big stuff that's going on to the best of my ability. So it goes to your inbox, you can't miss it. I also have a list of all the organizations that was put together by Whitney Oxendahl, and it is a fantastic portal into all the people doing work across the state. And the thing is, I do suicide prevention, which is everything. You might have a focus that you care more about. It could be rural communities, it could be disabilities, it could be rights, it could be food equity. Like, you should have a passion, and it might not be suicide prevention, but I want you to find it. I am really good at giving a lot of information and connecting people to different causes. So keep on following me as like your secondary source, but you should find someone primary who really has a specific focus and can tell you what you need to do about it. I'm mostly there to connect you to people, but if you do suicide prevention work, then I'm your focus. Like, I can tell you what to do about that. The other thing is I have, often we'll have what hearings are coming up, so you can check out what's going on, what's coming up, what you need to do. I've been doing this on Blue Sky, within Instagram, all my social medias really. I've been putting stuff out there in jokes. They're pretty funny sometimes, but you can also achieve this information by going to the Pulse. Sometimes I'll have direct information right at the top of my website. It's on Faye Seidler Consulting, but under the tab Pulse, it will have whatever is relevant. I change it constantly, maybe several times a day or once a day, but it's not a static website. It's not you look at it and that's what it is for life. I constantly change it to be better, to be relevant, to be new. So it's a very evolving website. And we're not always going to have that because there's a bill about creationism that's going to be going through. So eventually I'll have to tell you it's a website of only intelligent design by some grand maker. We'll call them Weebly. Told you I got the jokes. You didn't believe me, but I got the jokes. I try to keep it light. I know that right now is a very tough time. A lot of people are scared for a lot of reasons. I think it's a really turbulent time as well, regardless of what ends up happening. So I really want people to, as best they can, try to take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to other people. And one thing I really want you to know about all of this, the Pulse and the ways you can get involved, is action is a form of resiliency. You might not make change. You might send a letter to a editor. You might send some information to a senator or something like that, and maybe the bill that you hated still passed. I guarantee you, though, the effort of trying will make you feel better at the end of the day than just passively giving up. Action is resistance, is resilience. And the more that you are involved and feel like you're getting something done, even if it's not successful in the end of the day, you're going to feel better. So when you think about this, don't think about you need to change the world, you need to change hearts and minds, you need to change these bills. It would be great. We can't guarantee that. What you need to do is be okay with yourself. And when you do get involved, you feel better. It's a way to center yourself during times like this and be able to sleep a little bit better and feel a little bit more confident in the world. People often ask me how I can be so resilient or calm or whatever. I do this work all the time. It is my resiliency building to be an advocate and do what I can. And it's why I'm able to be a centering force in times like this. That's all I have for you for this show. Thanks for joining me. I hope to see you next week. Bye. Well, thank you everyone for watching my show. That's all I have for today. I hope you have a good rest of your week. I hope we see you back here next week. Just want to give some thank yous to all the folks here who contributed to the show, who made it all a great time and informed us about the cool stuff they're doing. He will be my outro probably for a while until I choose to change it. You all have a good day. Bye.